Alright, I'm going to make a quick video here showing you the easiest way to get your motions from OptiTrack's motive streaming into Unreal Engine Live and retargeted on some other kind of character. This is like the simple way. And you can see I got my branded swag on today with the Unreal Engine hat. I walked into work today and I got to wear a hat, keep my dome from getting scalded from the sun. Anyway, let's crack into it. Here is an example of what we're going to do. I just did a run through and there's some super cool dance moves. We've got a stream coming from my remote desktop here in Motive, and we've got a few different motions that we could look at. Here's another one. And we're going to see what it's like to retarget this onto some character in a live kind of context. So let's minimize that. That's coming through, and here's that motion on these guys. So we're going to set this up completely from scratch. So let's get rid of this. We'll save all that, and we'll make a new scene. So we're going to use 5.1. And we are going to use the third person template. The reason we're using the third person template is we want to use the live link retargeting assets that are already created. That's why this is the simple way. We'll call this Paragon Retarget. Paragon Retarg. I'll cut out all of this, waiting, so it's a little tighter. Okay, here we go. First thing that we want to do is add to this project the plugin for OptiTrack. So we don't have it loaded yet. So we're going to just go to where this project lives. Show and Explorer. And add a plugins directory. And I'll just copy it out of the demo that I just did. So this is the latest plugin. Copy, back. And now we're in this paste. And let's open this again. This plugin is 3.1, I think it's called. I can't remember. Plugins, OptiTrack. Yeah, 3.1. So that's the plugin for Unreal Engine 5.1. That plugin's loaded, and that means I can get my live link window. If you don't know where that is, that's here in Virtual Production Live Link. I like to dock mine over here. Let's go get our stream. So there is our stream, green, coming through, which is great. Now let's put this onto a mannequin. Where's the meshes for this? Meshes. We'll put this on Manny Simple. Now in order to do that, we need an animation blueprint. ABP underscore Manny Simple live link stream. Just try and name these things so I don't get too confused. I tend to make a bit of a mess. So here in the anim graph, we need a live link pose asset, live link pose. And we're going to set our subject to our performer, that this is the subject that's coming through with the motions. And when we connect this up and compile, we see it moving, but not quite right. And that's because the bone names coming through on this stream are not matching the bone names in our Manny. But OptiTracks in their plugin have provided a mapping that makes this work. Now when I use that mapping, that's this one. This comes with the plugin. When I use this and compile, nothing changes, and that's because of a bit of a refresh with the live link not really working that well. Now I remember this working better in 5.0 and in previous versions, but this is not working so well in 5.1. But here's the solution. You just break that link, compile again, so we're at this A pose, connect the link again, and there we go. We see the motion coming through here. So this thing creeps up. This kind of bug, this refresh issue, creeps up from time to time. And it will happen also when you add a live link skeleton component and do some refreshing in editor from time to time. So sometimes you have to delete that component, make it again to get the stream refreshed. But that's all we need here. So we save and close this. And now if we were to drag this into the scene and hit frame, we see it posed. And if you need to see it moving in editor, that's when you need this live link skeleton component. This will force this to refresh in editor. So if you go back up to the top of this thing and you look for the this variable here, update animation in editor, you could see it's ticked. You can't untick it. That tick is controlled by this component. If you add this component, that thing gets ticked. So that's step one. Now we have this motion streaming into the engine. Now one thing that is very important to note about this method is you'll get feet sliding, because this method doesn't scale the skeleton. If you have a small performer or an extra large performer that is, you know, a different size than your Manny, then you will see an issue with this. I just noticed this is Quinn, even though I made this thing to be associated with Manny. So I guess this should work with Manny as well, just the same, because they have the same skeleton. Regardless, so what's important to note about this is that you will see feet sliding, especially if your performer is a different size than Manny or Quinn or whatever this is streaming onto. Let me show you. There's a node that comes with the plugin, all classes. And if we scroll down here to the OptiTrack section, OptiTrack, there's an OptiTrack live link display actor that will display your OptiTrack. Let's get rid of some of these things and maybe move these things over here, and we'll see some dancing down here. And get my Quinn to do. And get them in the same neighborhood, and you can see that my performer is quite a bit smaller than Quinn. And the green skeleton, this might be hard to see on YouTube, but the green skeleton sticks to the floor very nicely. But my Manny is kind of spongy and doesn't stick to the floor. And that's the reason. The reason is that the scale that's coming in on the green skeleton is not being applied to the mannequin. And I think this is a straight up bug with the plugin from OptiTrack. And I've got all kind of convoluted workarounds, including one that I'll link in the description that my colleague Byron is working on. But the real problem is that the skeleton, if Manny's skeleton was scaled, we wouldn't see feet sliding. We'd get much better results. But this method is the quick method, and we're just going to live with this feet sliding because, you know, we want the quick method. So I'm going to turn off this display, and now we'll carry on with how you get this retargeted. It's just important to know that caveat. Feet sliding is what you're going to live with. What do I need now? I'll need some character to retarget onto. I'm going to quickly put in here a character from Paragon. So just stand by. I got a project over here with a boatload of Paragon characters. I don't know. We'll put Drongo. Drongo meshes migrate. All those up here. We got Paragon retarget content. Now Drongo is in here. There's Drongo, and Drongo will need a few things. We will need an animation blueprint for Drongo and a retargeting asset. So in my developer folder, I will create a retarget asset. These live under here, IK retargeter. And we don't need an IK retargeting rig because we're going to use one that exists already, the one made for mannequin. And we're going to have the mannequin here and the mannequin here. And then for the second mesh, we're going to change this to Drongo. And that's all we need to do. So we're going to just save this thing. We're going to save this just like that. And now we need a Drongo animation blueprint that will use that retargeting asset we just made. So we're going to create an animation blueprint, and we're going to call this ABP underscore Drongo retarget. And this is a very simple animation blueprint. You just need a retarget pose for mesh. You need one of those. Connect that up. And on the properties for this, you need use attached parent, and you need an IK retargeter asset. We'll use the Manny retargeter that we just made. We can now use this animation blueprint on a Drongo here in our scene. So you can either drag Drongo in here and set this to be our Drongo retarg blueprint, or we can drag this in here. We'll get the same result. Now we just need a parent-child relationship here, and that's pretty straightforward. You can just drag and drop this here, choose none, and now Drongo is a child of this. And I think if we add a live link skeletal animation component, we will see this updating in editor. So maybe you don't want to see the Manny. You know, you could hide it, but because of the parent-child relationship, you'll still see it. So instead, you can use the visibility toggle here to hide that other one. And you know, you'll need to work out something to do with these weapons in this case. But the principle is still the same. This should work if you apply it to your same character. And that's, you know, that's chapter 1 of this story. Is this should work for any kind of character, this kind of method. All right, so from here, what you might want to do is to make a blueprint so that when you place your character, it's a little more already set up rather than setting it up in the outliner. Let's just sort of make a blueprint, and then let's also investigate whether we could generalize this so that we could change the character to be any Paragon character. Let's see if that works. I'll just make an actor blueprint. Call it whatever. And we're going to need at least 2 skeletal mesh components. One that's a source, and one that's a child of this source that is the, we'll call this the target. One source and one target. And we will set some defaults here. Animation blueprint, we're going to make this to be the Manny and the Manny simple. And straight away we see that moving, which is great. And our target, we're going to use Drongo, just like we did a minute ago. Drongo and Drongo. And this is what we see in the editor, right? So that's great. But wouldn't it be handy if we had like an exposed toggle that we could hide this guy? That's pretty straightforward and easy to do. We would take in our construction script, we get this guy, and we should be able to set the visibility to some variable. And I'm calling it source visibility, and we'll expose that to blueprint, and we'll give it a default of off, which should mean we just see Drongo now. So that's pretty good. Let's save and put that in our level, and now we've got it with this visibility toggle, which is cool, but it's not updating. So we can fix that here in our blueprint by adding that live link skeleton component, and compile and save and close. And now we see we've got that with the toggle to show the source or not. Super. What else can we do? Can we generalize this to other Paragon characters? I'm not really sure, but let's give it a try. What we need to do that is expose some variables for the skeletal mesh that it's going to read and the anim blueprint that it's going to read. So this one, we're going to set, not get, we want to set the skeletal mesh asset, right? And we also want to set anim instance class to be the anim blueprint. So we've only got Drongo in here, but let's imagine we're going to put in some other Paragon characters, and we want to be able to, swap them out. That's what we'll do here. So we'll make this a variable, promote to variable, and we'll call this source skm. And sorry, no, we don't want that. We want to promote to variable source anim class, which is the anim blueprint that we want to set. Let's see, if I compile, we can then set these new variables with some defaults. I'll pick Drongo because that's what I got, Drongo, and Drongo retarg. Compile, save, and we should still see this. Oh, no, must have done something wrong here. It's not moving. Let's see if I got this right. Set the skeletal mesh asset to a new one. Oops, no, delete. And set the anim class to a new one. And what do we have here? Oh, I set the wrong defaults. Go back to my defaults. I don't want Drongo for this. I want Manny simple, and I don't want Drongo's retarget. I want Manny's because it's the source, not the target. Save. Look at the viewport, and we see our target moving. So now we want to be able to just the same update the target. So now this will let us update the source asset. Now we're going to do the same thing for the target asset. We need to create some variables, and we'll do the same way here we did a second ago. This is our target mesh, and we want to set skeletal mesh asset to a new variable, promote to variable, and this one's going to be called target skm. I guess I'll put a space because that's what I did last time. And we'll need a target anim class. Set anim instance class. This is where I'm going to set Drongo as my default. Promote to variable. Target anim class. Compile, and then I can set these defaults. Drongo and Drongo. Compile and save, and I should see no change, which is great. That's what I want, no change here either. I'll move that over here. And now I'm going to put in here another Paragon asset from my massive scene of Paragon assets. What's a good one? Something fun. Rampage is fun. Meshes. Migrate. Asset actions. Migrate. Okay. And this is our content folder for our target project. We'll minimize this. And now I've got a rampage over here. Find the mesh, skeletal mesh for rampage, and make an animation blueprint. Create anim blueprint, ABP underscore rampage underscore retarg. Double click, make it bigger, and retarget pose from mesh, connect them, select this guy, use attached parent is the default and it's ticked, and then here I'm going to try using Manny to Drongo and see if this works. Compile and save. And now let's see if I can just switch this here in my editor. First I need this blueprint again and make sure all these attributes that I want to switch in editor are exposed. What have I got? I've got 2 of these. Why do I have 2 of these? Find references. Construction script. One with a space and one without a space. Oh, for fuck's sake, Kevin. Compile and save. Which is the ones that I'm using here? Space or no space? Well, I'll just switch them all to be the ones that I know I've left behind. Yeah, great. Compile and save. And viewport, still working, great. So expose all these, 1, 2, 3, 4, and my Boolean. And now over here on my retarget actor, I'm going to see if I can switch this. Missing the anim class here. Oh. What the hell? Target anim class. Compile, save. That's exposed. Target, target. Target, target. Okay, that looks better. I'm going to change this to rampage and rampage. And it works. Great. So rampage maybe is going to show a little more feet sliding. You can kind of see it there. So it's still quite remarkable that it works as well as it does. I'm going to do this same set of steps for every other Paragon character that I have in my big project. And then I'll set them all out in a field, and then we'll end the video on that. All right? All right, so I went through my scene full of Paragon characters, and I made an animation blueprint for each one of them. Looks exactly like what we just saw. It's just got one single retarget node streaming into the pose, the output pose. And I applied that to all these characters, and you can see it works remarkably well. Nearly every character has a pretty good setup. I'm going to slow this down here a little bit, and we'll just slide along here. These characters all working pretty well. So I didn't load every single Paragon character in here. There's a couple that obviously need physics in order to look proper. There's a couple that are in need of some other improvements, like Grux, for example, has some different bone names at his feet, so his legs aren't quite working. But most of them are working very well. I also made a small update so that I could change the actor name, the performer name that's coming through on the live link stream. So in the Manny blueprint that we're using to set our live link thing, I made this a variable. And then in our blueprint that's in my my developers folder, I made a live link setup that takes the source skeleton here, does a cast to that thing, and then sets the live link subject to the name that we're going to set here. So we can change the subject name. Now this source skeletal mesh asset is generalized with these 2 variables so that we could change it in our level. However, I couldn't figure out how to generalize this cast. I don't know blueprint that well. So for the moment, I'm just doing this, but this should enable us to change the live link subject name. So I just added this at the end of our construction blueprint. And now if I select all these, I can change the subject name and use a different performance. So let's go back over to Motive on my other desktop, and I'll pick this motion here with some dancing. We'll just play that. Minimize this, and now we have a different subject coming across our live link called Laura. And if I go to my outliner and I select all of these, I can change the live link subject name here, and I should see some beautiful dancing. Yeah, there you go. Paragon assets. And again, we see more foot sliding here because our Laura performer is much taller than, I suspect, I don't know this for sure, but I suspect our Laura performer is taller than our mannequin asset. And again, we're not getting the scale coming through from the OptiTrack's plugin. If we did get that scale, I think it would stick much better. So I'm going to be looking into that. And like I mentioned, Byron Misfit, who I work with here, has made another workflow that we can create a skeleton from this live link stream. So I'm going to look into that next, and we'll see if that works as we hope. That's all for now. Thanks a lot for joining me on this journey.